Hello, my loves. Welcome back to Sitting with Spirit. I am a little bit lower energy today because I'm fighting a little bit of an autoimmune flare, which is when I'm in my glasses. It's a little eye thing. That being said, I am going to get through this the best I can. Part of this autoimmune flare feels connected to just the chaos and the collective. It's not that there isn't always pain and chaos on some level, but it's just very much in the forefront of American consciousness right now. And the intensity can sometimes take me out as a highly sensitive person. So, if you are feeling this too, there's a fine line between information, creation, resistance, and things that are helpful versus continually draining your energy, co creating with fear and scarcity and panic. I think having really strong boundaries with people is going to be a really big theme of this time period of so much change and chaos and unknown. It's not to say that we can't have important conversations, but when they start skewing into the doom scroll, dooms talking, hate filled places that can just zap our energy, we have to have strong boundaries with that. So I felt called for this Sitting with Spirit to wear this sweater that I've worn in a lot of my Sitting with Spirits. It's a sweater I wear when I need a little bit of extra strength. And basically, it's this sweater that I call my I survived sweater because when I went to Vancouver with Ari, we took a little day trip to Vancouver Island and we took a little seaplane. And I told this story on my Instagram. I'm not sure if I told it on the pod yet, but basically, we thought that plane was going to crash. It was a super windy, stormy day. We were going up and down and side to side. People were throwing up, people were crying, people were praying to God. It was like everyone was scared out of their mind in that situation. Like our plane was getting blown around. We were suddenly dropping and then tilting and then going back up. It was just insane. Somehow Ari stays cool. He is like such a Taurus and he's my rock. And he was staying cool the whole time for my sake, he later told me, because he knew that if he freaked out, I would freak out. So on that flight, I basically closed my eyes and I tuned into my angels and guides. And I was like, what do you need me to know? What is the lesson right now? What is going on? And they said that this plane ride is basically akin to feeling super out of control. I had no control in that moment to direct the plane for what the pilot was going to do, for what the weather was going to do. All I could do was sit there in faith. And it's interesting because they were also saying that people with severe flight anxiety, that's a connection to severe need to always feel in control. And airplanes are a big place that there is no control. Like you have to just get on that flight and fully surrender. And that's uncomfortable for humans. And a lot of us have that difficulty with that muscle. So I'm no different than that. As much as I love to travel, planes can be an uncomfortable experience. And so I was like going up and down and all around. And when I got that message about needing to let go of control, it was a perfect metaphor because that is how life has felt lately is up and down and all around and the energy feeling a little chaotic. And so when we got to Vancouver Island, I got this sweater and I call it my I Survive sweater. And I wear it in times where I need extra bravery and strength because I know that I survived and I let go of control and I surrendered to what will be. So just feels fitting today with the energy that I'm in to wear this and to also share that story and to look at where feeling out of control can truly make us feel like we are going to die. Our mind goes to the darkest places when we feel out of control. And is that really true? No, I didn't die. Sometimes disasters happen, things happen that are out of our control, and we don't make it out. But the majority of the time, we make it through the time of change and chaos, and we survive, and we're stronger for it. So, I wanted to share a couple messages from my mediumship circles because I've been really having amazing times with my sisters in there. And one of them, Sahar, gave a really beautiful message that felt very fitting with this episode. And I don't think I've shared it on the podcast yet. And that is dance with those who dance with spirit. And that felt very fitting for the message of this podcast today. Dance with those who dance with spirit, or else you'll either start doing a lower vibrational dance of people who are dancing with fear and scarcity and shadow, or you'll forget yourself if you dance with somebody who's not dancing with spirit, because spirit is who we really are authentically. I think that that is such a beautiful way to frame who we invite into intimate relationships and to be our dance partners in this life, whether it's romantic, platonic. Dance with those who dance with spirit. And this doesn't have to mean just a psychic or a medium or a spiritual practitioner. It means people who are actively trying to be good and in alignment with love, because that is the spirit world. And so I think we can all see the people who are trying to heal themselves and better themselves and be conscious of their actions, and who are generous and kind and warm and dancing with spirit. And I think that we can all recognize the people who are not dancing with spirit, who we have to beg and plead and convince and push to try to ask them to dance with spirit. And people have to make that choice on their own. And it can be really difficult when you can so clearly see their potential, or, how much better their life would be if they would just answer the call to go on their healing journey, to dance with spirit, to try to be their highest version of self. But that's unfortunately not a choice we can make for them. So, in light of this narcissistic abuse episode, and I do believe narcissism has a spectrum, like we said a couple of times, it's not to say that those people can't choose to dance with spirit if they're on the narcissistic spectrum, but don't be the one that tries to push them, convince them, beg them at the expense of your own light, dignity, self-love, personal power, self-confidence, and really self-respect. Because if we're dancing with the spirit world, which is, sitting in the power, if we're dancing with those who dance with spirit, there's no way that will ask us to not respect ourselves. And if we're dancing with people who are not dancing with spirit, it will be obvious, because it will fail the pillars of personal power. It will ask you to betray your self-respect. There will be no follow through on the words and the actions. There will be a constant dimming of your light and a loss of confidence. And so it's really important to just filter that, to see immediately, is this person dancing with spirit, or are they actually a bigger opportunity for me to step into my power? So, that being said, a big message that I got is that we need more silence and simplicity, that everything right now is really loud. This is another thing that came through in my mediumship circle today, where I connected with a spirit of a man in like ancient rural China. And he lived on this rice field, and he was talking to me about his practices and how basically this level of stimulation in his life is what our nervous system is programmed for. He lived very cyclically. He lived off of the land. He had community. But other than that, he was disconnected from the busyness of the bigger cities and the bigger hubs. He was just connected with nature and the elements that created space for creativity, spiritual connection, etc. And so basically all of us in our intuitive journey and our nervous system rewiring, like, what is our relationship to silence? And I've said this before on the pod, that silence plus time plus surrender equals spiritual connection. Without the silence, there isn't space to be filled by the spirit world to come through and speak to us. And so silence can be really difficult to cultivate. Silence can feel very uncomfortable. We want to immediately fill it. We want to numb and avoid and deny and just stay disassociated. And if we can learn to cultivate more silence, the first step might be sitting with the emotions and the thoughts that come up that try to take you out of it. But if you continue to practice silence and commit to silence, it's such a medicine that is underrated for these times, and it will help you see everything clearer. And so, with that being said, we're in the year of the snake now, and the North Node is in Pisces. And I found this to be a really beautiful synchronicity, because the Virgo Pisces polarity is all about healing. Virgo, healing the body and the mind. Pisces, soul level lessons, mastery, spiritual healing. And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, but the caduceus symbol, which is the two snakes intertwining up the staff, is the symbol of the healer. And that's very intentional because snakes shed their skin, they're sacred to the goddess energy, and they're all those two snakes intertwining kind of show the like infinite nature and power of that healing energy. And so this year of the snake that we're in is so much about shedding old paradigms. And if you know anything about cleaning your room, for example, to use that as a metaphor, it gets dirtier before it gets cleaner. And right now is a moment where a lot of the shadow that has always been there on the individual and the collective is being revealed. And you might be like, wow, I did not realize that this person had so much hate in their heart, or I did not realize I had so much hate in my heart, or so much shame, or so much grief that I haven't processed. It's like everything is being turned up emotionally, and we're hyper sensitive and heightened in this moment. And it's like this magnet is happening collectively, exposing all the shadow. And that's an invitation for us on the collective level and the individual level for deeper healing. Both are connected. So, this is like such an emphasis on healing. And because it's with the nodes of fate, it's about the collective and the individual. Like I said, they're both connected. But this really is about stepping into the age of Aquarius, and before the light can come in, it's exposing the darkness, exposing the shadows, exposing what needs to be. And so the North Node in Pisces is so much about turning up the volume on feeling our feelings so that we can better understand them and truly release and forgive. Pisces is the end of a cycle, and we're in this snake skin shedding year. So this is just full of endings, deeper healing, soul growth, who we came here to be, what we came here to learn. It's a very powerful time. And I just feel called to say that if you feel overwhelmed, you are not alone. There are more people in alignment with love. There are more people in alignment with community. And sometimes we don't always have the loudest voices. Sometimes we don't even know what to say in the face of such ugliness and hate. But we are with you and we love you and you're not alone. This is such a beautiful hummingbird community. I do not support hate or intolerance in any form, truly. And I believe that the hummingbird community feels the same. I hope so. So, just sending love to everybody out there who feels alone, the LGBTQ community, the minority communities. You are not alone. We love you. Women, obviously, you know I love you. This podcast is like 98% women, which I love, but of course, everybody's welcome. So, yeah, just kind of a love note there and making clear that you guys know my heart. As I was saying, with the North Node in Pisces, this is a master class year and a half, really. And basically, we have been strengthening our spiritual toolbox from 2020 to 2024 so intensely. And 2025 is like, you ready for the master class in everything you've learned? Because as you heal your inner child, you start to become less activated and triggered, which note Chiron in Aries includes inner child healing on the collective scale. And a lot of what is happening in the United States and on a collective level is triggering our inner children who felt like it was unsafe to disagree, who felt like they were in a chaotic environment that wouldn't meet their needs, that felt scared or alone or abused. It's bringing up things that, like I said, are magnetizing deeper healing. So if we've already been having a practice with our inner child, which is one of our most important spirit guides, to sit with them, to listen to them, to feel what they are asking us to feel, to connect with our authenticity. We already have a strengthened toolbox for this heightened moment energetically. And this moment is heightened energetically, not just because of politics is a reflection of the heightened energy, because all of the outer planets this year, not all of them, but a lot of them are changing signs. And it's just creating this sort of chaotic changing of the guards. So, that being said, we're putting our tools and toolboxes into play. And a big part of that is going to be boundaries with people who drain you, who can't respect distance, who demand too much of you, who require you to light yourself on fire to keep them warm. I know I say that all the time because it's just so accurate. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. No longer accepting less than you deserve, no longer waiting for the potential, no longer letting yourself be talked down to or mistreated, letting go of relationships that are not equal. So, this is going to be really important as part of protecting your energy through times of change. And so, with that being said, I saw this interesting symbol of a tornado, which is my symbol for like chaos and a lot of moving parts and a lot of things happening, mixed with pressure cooker energy. And that was creating basically like a vortex. So, although this time feels very chaotic and intense, it's also pushing us into deeper transformation. And Pluto's lesson, which Pluto in Aquarius is definitely fueling a lot of these collective themes right now, is how intense does it have to get before it changes? How bad does it have to get? How heavy does it have to get before it changes? And I think a big theme for this year as well is, where am I settling? Where am I settling? And how can I step into something that feels a little bit more unknown or scary, but also sets you free in a way because you're not trying so hard to hold the reins of control of everything together. So, that being said, I saw this interesting image of a crowd of a bunch of people coming together to sing and to chant. And it felt very ancient. And it was like they were saying it's the earth's song. And so I feel like there might be forms of protests or community organizers or things about coming together in community and singing. There's something about singing and sound that is like so healing, and it transcends just speech. It's like in musical theater when a song comes, it's because their emotion is so high, they're beyond the point of speech. And so there's something about coming together, singing the earth song and remembering what that feels like in community, and through music letting people feel their feelings and emote and process things in a community setting. So I don't know what the actual thing is there, but I just saw an image of it and it felt so beautiful and heartbreaking and heartfelt all at the same time. It feels like it's this moment for getting together collectively and expressing creatively, especially through music and sound and chanting. And then I was also seeing a tent, and it made me feel like there was some connection to like living in the land, reconnecting with nature, maybe going camping, disconnection, silence. Like these things are really, really important. And then before we get into the mediumship, the last little symbol that I saw was a baby slash Aries. And so that's my symbol for like, it can be a baby, but it can also be new life, new project, rebirth moment, starting fresh, this fresh start energy. And the seeds we're planting now will only come into bloom even more during Aries season. So we're still in that like dark part of the year right before the spring equinox. And it's the time where the roots can grow so deeply that there can be amazing blossoms in spring. I think that there's just one more message, and I don't know if when this comes out, things are going to be even more intense politically or thematically or on the global, but so much of the messaging today just felt very connected to that to me. And as a member of the collective, it can be sometimes hard for me to fully detach my biases and perspectives. And so I'm really working to do that and make sure that I'm just speaking strictly about the feelings and the messages that come through. That's why I'm trying to develop trance so that I can just step back and fully take everything in my mind out of it and let the messages that want to come through come through. But there was a message that basically we need radical honesty on both sides. That when both sides of the aisle politically get so indoctrinated into their ideology that we no longer question the party, that is a problem. And I basically saw that there's corruption on both sides, and there's people who want to do good on both sides, but that we get so radicalized that we turn on each other and the corruption wins, the shadow wins. And what we need to do is remember the light. remember the light, because we start to villainize each other. When in reality, we are the community. We are the ones that need to be helping each other and lifting each other up. And so, if we can do that healing work in ourselves to remember our light and to do our healing work, that will only help us see the light, foster the light, and help other people remember their light. And then we can come together in remembrance of humanity and what's important and what really matters. Instead, we're living in so much shadow and chaos and like blind acceptance just because someone says something. And I think that part of the message of remembering the light isn't just about healed versus unhealed. It's also like enlightenment, like shining the light on what has been hidden, learning new things, revealing new things. And we need to remember the light on both sides, because the shadow has really been trying to do the work of the shadow and create more separation, create more fear. And it's really intense. And that's where the boundaries come in too, is like standing in our light and staying solution oriented and staying present and protecting our energy so that it's sustainable for us, and trying to be a creative force for love, and as ironically, love and light as it sounds, it's just those are the two words in the human language that describe that energy: love, light, and truth. And so that is really important. And love plus light can equal truth. Truth is simple, fear is complicated. There's so much that we just need to be real with ourselves about. And instead of even seeing it as two different parties or two different sides, being super critical of everything. And because we can be very tribalist as humans, where it's like my side versus your side. And I don't think that's serving us. And I think that it's only serving the shadow. And so remember the light, be the light, walk with the light, dance with those who dance with spirit. That is part of the master class of this moment. I want to move into the mediumship now. So the sweetest older gentleman was coming in, and I just wanted to hang with him for a long time because he was so sweet. He was so warm. He was so lovely. He was very proud of the fact that he was a judge while he was here in the physical world. He was very soft spoken, and he gave me the feeling that he would have been way more of a listener than a speaker. And I also got this feeling from him that, yeah, he was very observant, and he kept showing me his gavel. Like, I was like, I get it. That's great. He also showed me that he had some Irish ancestry, and I was seeing a 4-leaf clover. And then I also got the feeling that something happened with his stomach area. I feel like there might have been cancer in his stomach or something there, because I felt a lot of pain in my stomach area as I was tapping into him. I also saw that he had a mustache, and I felt like he would have been proud of that and like meticulous with that. He also showed me the letter A. So this could be his name or who it's for. And I feel like he would have been like the age of a grandfather. So I don't know if it's an actual grandfather, but he felt like he was in his 60s or 70s to me. And I got the feeling that like he would have passed kind of a while ago, and that he was from maybe the 60s, 70s, 80s generation. That's like when he was in his prime. So basically, he was giving me the feeling that his entire life, he suppressed his sexuality. And he was making me aware that he was gay and that it wasn't socially acceptable in his community for that. And he made me feel like he was in a lavender marriage, which, if you aren't aware of what that is, it's basically marrying someone for like companionship and love, but also to hide your sexuality and be like, see, I married a woman, but it's for sort of platonic love, safety, and security. That's my understanding of a lavender marriage. And if that isn't right, please let me know. So I felt like he had this one woman who was like the love of his life, even though it wasn't sexual. And I feel like they did everything together. I feel like she really understood him. I feel like they could be such deep companions. And that felt really beautiful. And his message is, don't hide who you are. Use your voice and celebrate who you are. Who you are, your authentic self, is worthy of being celebrated. And he wished that he would have celebrated who he was when he was here, because I feel like he felt like he had to be very closeted and show up one way and be hidden a little bit. And he never gave the world or himself a chance to fully love himself. That is the message today, is use your voice, speak your truth, and don't just show who you are, celebrate who you are. Be in that celebration of your authenticity, because the world needs you and the world needs your light. And he was such a precious person to connect with. So, yeah, I feel like there also would have been a connection with him to loving Freddie Mercury, which was really interesting because I kept seeing Queen songs coming on and stuff like that as I was connecting with him. I feel like he also would have liked to dance, and that his public persona was very different than his private one. And he wishes that he would have celebrated who he was. And from that perspective and spirit, it's like the more we can celebrate our true colors and individuality and what makes us us, the more it gives permission to the world to do the same. And the more we live in fear and shame, the more the shadow wins. And the shadow just wants to create more shadow, and the light just wants to create more light. And that being said, I want to leave with a quote from Pam Grossman, the author of Waking the Witch. She's awesome. And in her book, something that really resonated with me was a quote that said, "Magic is made in the margins." Magic is made in the margins. If you exist in the margins, you matter. And we love you. And thank you for making magic. The world needs you. So stay shining bright, sending so much love to all of the hummingbirds, and have a beautiful week, my loves.